Hey everyone, it's Sammy from Push Square, and I wanted to put up a video because the review embargo for the PlayStation 4 Pro has literally just lifted. Now, I'm not quite ready to review the console just yet, but I do feel like I've seen enough to sort of share my thoughts on the system itself. Now, if you want a final verdict, do check back later in the week because I'm gonna have a review up on the channel. But I just wanted to put up something today so I could talk to you about what I've seen so far, and my initial impressions are that I'm really impressed with it actually. First up, the hardware. Like, the hardware is nice. I think there's been a lot of criticism of the way the console looks, but I like that kind of three-tiered sandwich design that they've gone for. It's quite minimalistic, but not quite as minimalistic as the PS4 Slim, and as a result it looks and feels kind of premium. It's quite large, but it's not too big, and again it's also quite heavy, but in a nice way. It gives it a bit of heft, a bit of weight to it, and there are some design decisions about the PS4 Pro that I really like. For example, there's a USB port on the back now, and one of my big criticisms of PlayStation VR was that it felt like a bit of a bodge job when you had cables coming around the front of the console and around the back of the console, but that's no longer the case. You can plug everything into the back of the console, which looks tidy, and it's still got the two USB ports on the front, which is handy if you have like wireless headphones and you're charging up the DualShock 4. The one thing that I will say about the hardware design is the power and eject buttons that are on the console itself are not great. They're very flush to the plastic of the unit, and it basically feels like when you're pushing them there's no spring or anything like that, so it feels like you're going to snap a piece of plastic, which I really don't like. But that's kind of the only nitpick I have about the hardware itself. The fan noise is very quiet. I've done a separate video on that if you want to check that out, but I find that the fan noise is whisper quiet when you're running a game off the hard drive. It does kick up in volume ever so slightly when you put in a disc and start installing it, but it's not to the levels of the launch PS4 and certainly not to the levels of the PS4 Slim, so it's the quietest PlayStation 4 that Sony's made to date. As for the hardware itself and what it can actually do, I made a video last week about kind of my impressions seeing it on 4K TVs with HDR, and I think the results are incredible. Basically what you're getting with the PS4 Pro is PS4 games elevated to a higher level. You know, games like Infamous Second Son already looked incredible on the standard PS4, but when you enable HDR, when you push the resolution up, they just go to an even higher standard. Like, some of these games look absolutely mind-blowing, and the thing I'll say is, like, a lot of people have criticised the PS4 Pro for not all of the games offering native 4K, but I kind of think that this is a moot point. The checkerboard rendering system that a lot of titles are employing, and some games use different systems and solutions for this, but the checkerboard rendering is really good. It's been described as upscaling, but it doesn't look like upscaling. It looks native 4K, and I think there are two things that are worth pointing out here. Firstly, the solution is really clever and really smart, first and foremost, but I think secondly, the other thing is, like, when you're getting to 4K resolution, the pixel density is so high that native doesn't matter quite as much as it did when you were talking about sort of 900p to 1080p. And I know that that sounds like an excuse, but I really feel like you could put, like, Horizon Zero Dawn, for example, which is a game using checkerboard rendering, right next door to a game that's using native 4K, and 99.9% of people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Now, there are those technophiles that will be able to tell a difference, but the reality is that this is good enough, more than good enough, and certainly for someone like me, who's not a technophile, who doesn't really understand image quality to the level that a site like Digital Foundry does, for example, I couldn't tell you the difference between a native 4K game and a checkerboard rendered game. And the other thing that's worth mentioning there is, like, even though it's not native 4K, it's significantly better than what you've already got. Like, you know, I think people have become obsessed with this idea of native resolutions, and I don't really know why that is, because it's much, much better than the kind of image quality that you're getting on your standard PS4 today. So that's really worth keeping in mind. Like, the PS4 Pro is a significant step forward from what you've got. And I will add, like, I have been playing on a 1080p TV as well. I tried out Infamous Second Son and a few other games, Uncharted 4, and the super sampling does make a difference. It's not the kind of thing that you're instantly going to notice, I don't think, but like you can tell that there's a sharper clarity to the picture quality, and that's because the image is being rendered out at a much higher resolution and then scaled back down to 1080p. And some games in particular are creating 1080p specific modes. So Rise of the Tomb Raider, for example, is a really good one. It has a few options. You can bump up the frame rate of the game, or you can turn on a kind of enriched visuals option, which basically like bumps up all of the effects and all of the game's visual features. So that's really nice. Infamous Second Son does a similar thing where you can choose between the higher resolution or a better frame rate, and it basically runs at close to 60 frames per second when you've got the high frame rate option on, which is, you know, I think is something that people are going to like. And I think as the system matures and as developers get to grips with what kind of consumers want and what they can do with it, I think you're going to see more games come with more options like that. So 1080p specific options that maybe boost the frame rate, or the option to have the higher resolution, whatever people are actually demanding. The other thing that I've been trying is PlayStation VR. Now, the thing with PlayStation VR is that the hardware's locked. The resolution of the headset is what it is, and it's never going to change. But developers are doing some things to improve the quality of the PlayStation VR experience, including super sampling, like what I was just talking about with 1080p TVs, where they render the game out at a higher resolution and then shrink it back down. And this results in like less jaggies and a sharper image quality. And I tried Battlezone, which actually looks really good on PlayStation 4 Pro. It's like added like extra lighting effects to the cockpit of the tank, and it's also looks a lot cleaner than it does on a standard PS4. And the other game I've been playing is Robinson the Journey, which is by far the best looking PlayStation VR game that I've certainly seen to date. Some of the lighting effects, some of like the density of the foliage and stuff like that is really, really impressive on the PS4 Pro. And the image quality is, while it's not crystal clear, because the headset just can't do crystal clear, it's a lot better than anything I've seen, certainly at launch, for example. You definitely lose that blurriness on the PS4 Pro, so there are advantages for PlayStation VR as well. And so overall, I think PlayStation 4 Pro is a great product. I really do. Like, if you've got a 4K TV with HDR, then this is a no-brainer. But even if you're an enthusiast just looking for the best possible image quality, I think you're going to get a lot out of the PS4 Pro, especially if you've got PlayStation VR and you play a lot of games. And this is all without mentioning the kind of 4K streaming, improvements to remote play, the better Wi-Fi chip. So there's a lot in this machine that takes it to the next level. And I think the key thing and the smart thing about the PS4 Pro is that it doesn't change the game in so much as this isn't a new generation. What this is doing is taking great PS4 games and adding icing to the top of them. If we want to use a cake analogy, it's kind of the cherry on the top. It's not going to make the original PS4 obsolete. Developers are still going to build with the original PS4 in mind, what the extra hardware power is being used for, and it's on a game-by-game basis, but generally what the extra hardware is being used for is to bump things to the next level, be it through resolution, be it through frame rate, or be it through some extra effects or features. And I think that Sony's been really smart here. I think they've played it just right. They've come up with a console that's great for enthusiasts, that's great for people with 4K televisions, but that doesn't make the original PS4 obsolete. And I think enthusiasts are really, really going to like the PS4 Pro. I'm certainly impressed with it so far, and I'm looking forward to just finishing off my review and putting together my final impressions. But let me know whether you're pre-ordering or buying the PS4 Pro on launch day in the comments section. And thank you so much, as always, for watching.